I'm here coming to you literally from my garage floor because I've got a bunch of gear laid out and just going to show you kind of what's in my pack, everywhere from your very first trip into the bouldering gym as a brand new climber all the way to multi-pitch trad climbing. First, for gym climbing, if you're just getting started in the gym, you're going to need a chalk bag and a pair of shoes. That's the bottom line. And that'll get you started with bouldering. When you buy your first pair of shoes, just make them comfortable. You don't want to be squeezing your toes down. You want to be able to wear them for a couple hours straight and not have pain. So they should be snug, but just not overly tight. So if you're still climbing in the gym, but you want to get into lead climbing, then you're going to need a few more things. So, or at least rope climbing. Number one is a harness. If you're belaying, a pair of belay gloves is really nice. And these are just hardware store gloves. They cost $15 or something like that. They're inexpensive. You're going to need a belay device, and you should really have an auto blocking or assisted locking belay device. And there's lots of those out there now. This is an Untitled Megajoule, which does a pretty good job and has a bunch of different ways you can use it. And so I do like that piece of gear. And then you want a locking carabiner. And this is I can't remember which version of carabiner this is, but it's one of Untilted's carabiners. And it's an auto locker. It opens really easily with one hand. It does stick a little bit on the closure. But then it also has this orientation clips. You can clip that over the belay loop in your harness and make sure that carabiner always stays oriented in the proper way. So I like that. And if you get into lead belaying, you're going to also want to have, it'd be nice, I should say, to have a gree-gree. If you do a lot of lead belaying, it's just a really nice device for being able to feed rope quickly and take your partner if they're trying to work a hard move. It's just a really nice device. And I would definitely, if you get a belay device, get one that's got an auto blocking feature, because a lot of gyms are starting to require that. And then if you get into lead climbing in the gym, you're going to also need a rope. I would recommend buying a specific gym rope. That shorter rope is just a lot easier to manage in the gym rather than taking your 70-meter outside rope and trying to deal with that inside the gym. It's worth the money. We usually buy a 70 and cut it in half and split the cost with somebody. So that's a great way to get started. Okay, next we're going to go migrate out to the crag. All right, so if you're going to go out to the crag, you're going to need a few more things. First thing is a bunch of Quickdraws. So this is a dozen Petzl Spirit Quickdraws. They come in two different lengths, short and long. I'm a fan of the longer ones. They have a key lock on the gate, so they're not going to get stuck on your harness as you come off your harness. So I like those. So you want probably about a dozen draws, and then at least a couple longer draws that you can use for anchors. Now, I don't use lockers on my anchors. I just use, if I'm sport climbing, I'm using two different clips with opposing gates, and that feels really comfortable to me. That's kind of the quick draw set that I think a basic climber is going to need. And then my wife also, she's a little bit shorter, so she has this, she calls it a stiffy quick draw that she can use to clip those bolts that are out of her reach. She's only just a little over 5 feet, so that helps her a little bit. I don't carry one of those. You definitely want some belay glasses, and of course I make these, the iSend belay glasses that are adjustable in nature, and that's definitely worth getting if you're going to be belaying a lot to save yourself some neck pain. You're going to also want a rope, and if you're going outside, you need a long rope. I would recommend getting a 70-meter rope, maybe 9.2 to 9.8 millimeter diameter range. Also get a rope bag, so a bag to cover your rope that's going to lay out as a tarp. That's going to help keep dust and dirt and extend the life of your rope. And of course, once you get all this gear, you're going to have a pack to carry it. Black Diamond Creek packs are really a nice thing. You can see they stand up really nicely on their own, so it's a really good crag pack. So that's a good starter set of things you want for sport climbing outside. Let's say you're getting more serious about sport climbing and you're ready to take that to the next level. Here's a few more things that you might want to do. Number one, a better pair of shoes. So I had you in a La Sportiva Tarantula. If you're going to be climbing seriously, you need to get something, number one, probably more aggressive, and also it's going to give you a lot better sensitivity. Find a shoe that fits your foot really well and downsize it just a little bit so you've got a lot of sensitivity and feel. So a good pair of shoes, critical if you're getting into harder sport climbing. Maybe you need a knee pad, depending on the kind of style of climbing. If you're climbing out in rifle, that could be pretty useful. Or a stick clip is pretty handy. If you like to have a top rope for those first 1 or 2 clips, this lets you do that. So another thing is a little bit of tape. You might be getting finger injuries. I've got a pinky that's talking to me a little bit right now. So some finger tape, I help it stick on. The finger tape tends to come off a lot. So I put some Mueller pre-tape on first. And then I use a little bit of super glue as I wrap the tape. I don't super glue the tape onto my finger, but I super glue between the strands to help the tape stick to itself just a little bit better. So that's something that I carry with me that helps prevent injuries a bit. Might be time to get a helmet depending on the kind of climbing you're doing. A lot of people sport climb without helmets. It's a good idea to sport climb with a helmet on, and maybe we should have had it in that crag pack when you first started going out. Okay, so if you're serious enough to be buying knee pads, you're probably serious enough to start doing a little bit of hangboarding. This is a portable hangboard, and I'm only using it as a representation. You probably want a hangboard, and you can train at home with that, just as a standard hangboard on above your doorway in your kitchen or something like that. And then for crag comfort, you know, super cool kids bring a chair with them, so something to sit down on when they're at the chair. That's kind of handy and nice. And then definitely if it's cold weather, you got to have a puffy, you know, that's just cool if nothing else. And then puffy pants sure are nice. These are Black Diamond insulated belay pants. If you're standing around in the cold a lot, those really take the edge off and make that belay, or the time between burns, that much more comfortable. Okay, so that's an advanced sport climbing setup. Next, we're going to go on to trad climbing. All right, so now we're into trad climbing. So this set of gear is for cragging at the trad climbing, but still staying on a crag, like at Vidavu, which is where I learned how to climb for what it's worth. So what might you want there? Now, trad gear gets expensive, so you got to kind of work towards this, but a great kind of a target for your first set of gear is a double set of cams, and I've got mostly Camelots on this thing, so I go from 0.4 and all the way up to number 4. And I think, you know, start with a single set and then see if you can get up to a double set. And you'll also want to have some stoppers. This is a lot lower cost way to get some gear, and they work really well if you just have a little bit of craft about them. Definitely want a piece tool. Some trad shoes. These are Sportiva TC Pros, which are pretty nice for trad climbing. So this is a pretty good set for crag trad climbing. Next, we're going to move on to multi-pitch trad climbing. My last section is multi-pitch trad climbing. What are the kinds of things you need for that? And it adds a bunch more stuff. Number one, a personal anchor system. So this is a Metolius PAS. You loop that through your harness, and then you can use it to anchor yourself to whatever belay that you set up. For setting up those belays, you probably want either a quad or a cordelette that you can use. I kind of like the cordelette because you can get 3 pieces and it's really quick to anchor, and you can come down to a central anchor point. The quad has its advantages as well. Speaking of more personal anchor stuff, you know, it's nice to have an auto block device or a prusik that you can use to kind of guard yourself when you're doing rappels or get yourself out of sticky situations. You probably need to, I mentioned belay gloves earlier, but you need to up the belay glove game just a little bit if you're doing multi-pitch stuff, because you want to be able to clip those bad boys onto your harness and not have them fall off. So these are some Black Diamond belay gloves, which have nice beefy clip loops on them. More safety stuff, an extra sling maybe. If you want to sling a rock, if you're stuck or something like that, or you're on some sketchy anchor that you want to back up, a little bit of extra sling is a nice thing to have. Pretty good chance you're going to get stuck out in the dark at least, so get yourself a good headlamp that you can use. And we talked about Quickdraws before, but if you're doing multi-pitch trad stuff, you're going to want to get some alpine draws. So these are Spectra small slings with lightweight carabiners on them. You can take them and extend them out or make them short. So that's going to help with rope drag and getting over to a piece that's not right in line like a bunch of bolts are going to be typically. Probably you're going to want a day pack. So if you're doing multi-pitch stuff, this is a Patagonia linked pack. It's an 18-liter pack. It's pretty small. It's lightweight. It's got a little bit of padding in it. There's a small hip belt on it. So this is just something you can carry your shoes in and a little bit of extra water. So that's a nice thing. We often climb. The leader doesn't have a pack, and the second will carry a pack with them. So that's a nice way to climb. A tagline is a nice thing to have. So we've got our lead rope that we bought when we started doing outside climbing, but this is a Esprit Aper. I can't remember what that stands for, but it's a 6mm line. It's really stiff. You can see that it just kind of has a lot of stiffness to it. And so what it does is it's lighter weight, and because it's so stiff, it actually repels kind of more like a 9mm. And the fact that it's so stiff means it's not going to wrap around little small edges, so it's less likely to get stuck when you're pulling it. And then I talked a little bit about clothes before, but a nice lightweight Gore-Tex or some other kind of jacket. This is a La Sportiva jacket. There's barely any pockets on this thing, but you don't want a lot of bulk on a jacket because it's going to be stuffed under your harness most likely if it's a little bit colder, and so you just don't want a lot of bulk. Okay, so that's kind of a gear setup everywhere from starting out in bouldering from the gym to multi-pitch trad climbing. Love to hear any comments of other things that you might find useful. Thanks for watching and stay safe out there.